Hi, I'm Ashley Cheeks. I'm a business plan consultant, and I'm here today interviewing Corbin Cook of SMB Strategy Consultants. Corbin, I'm so excited to talk to you because I keep getting the same question over and over again from my clients. They always want to know how they can position their business, whether it's a startup or a business in a growth cycle. They always want to find out how they can position it to where they are maximizing profits, taking a respectable salary for themselves while they're doing all of this growth planning for their business. And I know that you're kind of an expert in this, and so I'm really excited to get your perspective on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a common question because, one of the things that the SBA tells us, Small Business Administration, is that 83% of businesses are surviving check to check. And, of course, that's in alignment with the failure rate of small business owners. So what we found and what we implement here for our clients is a system called Profit First. And it's not it's similar to some of the methodologies for personal cash flow when it comes to like the envelope system or even the pay yourself first, but it has a bigger dramatic effect on a business owner. And here's what I mean by that. All right, so traditional accounting tells us that it's revenue minus expenses equals profit. And one of the biggest downfalls of that is that profit as a focus is an afterthought. So what tends to happen is a business owner focuses on the expenses beyond sales. And so we end up throwing money at problems. We end up letting the expenses kind of get out of control, and we feel like we just have to plow all of our profits back into it. All right, so that being the problem, and we've even been trained that way as business owners to put our money back into our business. Well, by doing Profit First, the first thing we do is we establish a new equation, and it's revenue minus profit equals expenses. And it sounds simple, but it's kind of like going on a diet. You know how Americans, we have really big plates. And so what happens is we fill our plates up with food. So the first thing when someone really wants to, lose weight or become healthier is to shrink the size of their plates. Same thing happens in a business when it comes to like expenses. So if we allow our expenses to exist on a big plate, or for that matter, not have a plate size necessarily, then we fill it up. And so by taking profit first, owner pay, even setting aside tax money right out of the initial revenue, we solidify a healthy business because we shrink the size of the expense plate. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. And I've never heard of it that way because usually you're right. It's all about beefing up the expenses and understanding, that you've covered everything, and then whatever's left over hopefully is positive and is profit. But it rarely works that way, especially if you just keep spending and spending, trying to get to the magic place you're trying to get to. And the idea of putting profit as a core focus over expenses, that sounds brilliant to me.
That little behavioral shift transforms the way a business owner actually looks at their business and even looks at their expenses. It's once you start to ask the question of how can we do more with less? Like the minute I say that we really need to find ourselves at a place where your owner pay is 30% and your profit should be 10%, all of a sudden when we look at it and we see the expenses take up 70, 80% of the overall revenue, we start to ask questions of, well, how are we going to get to these new numbers? And by going through an incremental shift over a series of quarters, we take someone from their current allocation all the way down to the point where they are a healthy business. So it takes time. It's not something that someone starts off doing. But actually, because you work with so many startups, here's the power of this. You start off doing it the right way from the very beginning, and the business always maintains a healthy balance. And they're getting paid what they're worth. It's a tremendous value to a startup to think this way from the very get-go. I do a lot of work after the fact, and we start cleaning up an unhealthy business. But truly and truly, it's that behavioral shift that transforms the business into a cash-making machine.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Doing things perfectly from day one is always easier to maintain than developing a bunch of bad habits and focusing on expenses and trying to get margins backwards. If you can get that right in the beginning, that would change the course of so many businesses and would reduce the failure rate, I'm sure. Because when you talk about profit, it's something that is the lifeline to your business. You don't have a business if you don't have profit. So it makes sense to make it a priority now that you talk about it that way.
Well, I've helped a lot of business owners go from feeling like that their employees make more than them to the point to where they really feel like they're taking advantage of all the owner perks. It's so rewarding to be able to help that owner who has been taking all this risk and really sacrificing quality family time and, feeling stressed out and, surviving check to check to where when like 2008 happens, it just took years off their life because of stress. And by implementing this strategy, not only are we helping them provide a healthy business, but we're also giving them control over some of that seasonality, because the profit piece of this is to maintain a 50% of that profit account there for the scenarios that we don't always know are going to come around the corner. So we actually help position them for that emergency fund, removing that check-to-check mentality.
That's so critical. Having that cushion, that contingency bucket sitting there is something that a lot of entrepreneurs see as kind of an afterthought. And, if we have extra, we'll save it or reinvest it into the company. But you're right. There's so many things that happen that are unforeseen that you can't predict. And making, again, another priority bucket for those unexpected things can literally save your business.
Absolutely. So, we've positioned this as a way to really deal with the high failure rate and really to help business owners get away from that struggle mentality. And it's so frustrating because it's so important to have small businesses thrive in our economy and to create jobs and to benefit from all that hard work. I mean, it's not easy by any means. And so we feel confident that this strategy is really designed to give them the strength and the security to move forward and do all those wonderful things for our economy.
And let me ask you this, Corbin. So you put into this strategy, this profit first mentality, you include the owner's salary in that, correct?
Yeah. So it goes back to the owners need to be paid what they're worth. So you have both the owner pay account and the profit account. And so what happens is we segment money out into the owner pay, but most of the time, they're getting paid a salary on a monthly basis from payroll. So we'll move that money back into the operating expense to go out accordingly. But it's the whole idea that we've already built it into the revenue. So a lot of times the owner won't take the right salary. They suspend that salary to put more back into the business. And what we find is that behavior never really, for the smaller percentage, it all works out. But for a lot of owners, without this kind of strategy, they never save for retirement. They never really get to a place where they stop sacrificing that family time because they're always in that mindset of, I've just got to keep doing this for the business. And it's a fallacy, and it's what creates so much stress and really that high failure rate.
And it's funny you say that, because it's not just a matter of paying yourself and making sure that you get what you deserve with all the hours you're putting into the business.
Right.
But it's also about making sure that you're personally stable enough to focus on the growth of the company.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what business owners will do is they will say, well, I'm not paying myself or taking a salary unless the business is profitable. But that's not realistic, because over time you have household things that need to be taken care of. And so what do? You'll pull from the business cash, right? And that is a no-no. You don't do that. But if they don't have a dedicated salary or a dedicated place to pull their personal cash from, then they risk muddying up their financials with their business if they do it any other way that's unstructured.
Right. And what's cool is that no matter where the business is, we start off with at least 1% of that revenue going into that profit account. So no matter what, now even if the company is struggling to find it, we're going to put 1% in that profit account. And we're going to, every quarter, they get to take half of that profit account as a distribution. And so if someone's not used to taking distributions in the right way, it's a way to get them started to understand that that's for their risk. You need to get paid for what you're doing in the business. That's the owner pay. You're getting paid a salary. But it's that owner distribution. That's the dividends. That's the power of being an owner. And so we encourage them to take the half out and leave half in for the rainy day, and to go and just enjoy it. It does, don't put that back in the business. Don't pay debt off with that. Just take that 1% or that 50% of 1% every quarter and just go enjoy it, because what we're trying to do is rewire the brain so that we can begin to understand that our business is designed, and we're risking ourselves to do this for these owner perks and to enjoy a wonderful lifestyle. And this is the way we want to go about doing it.
Nobody goes into business to work nonstop with no pay or positive reward for it. So you're kind of forcing that natural thing, which is exactly why we go into entrepreneurship to begin with. It's to own our own life and to have some way to enjoy it differently than if you were just working a 9 to 5. So it's ironic that it's so hard for business owners to take that salary and to take that dividend and be comfortable with it. But that mindset shift is so essential.
Yeah, it really is. And it's this is the path to get them on that page. And anyway, I appreciate you being so interested in it, because it's something that we feel like is just so important.
I can see how this would be a real game changer. I think I'm going to start using it with all of my clients going forward, because it definitely belongs in every business plan. And I think it's going to change the trajectory of a lot of small businesses.
Well, I'm so glad that you're an advocate.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time, Corbin. This has been wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ashley.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.